Hey guys, welcome to the AnKorage, and this is going to be a brand new series, so why don't we just cut through the chase and just get right to it. This happens to be Siwtched. Alright, well, welcome on back, and yeah. So, a brief introduction about myself. I'm Ivan, I'm from the AnKorage, and however, for these videos, I'm actually going to be something else. I am actually going to be the anchors for Switch to Linux. I happen to be a staff member of the Switch to Linux YouTube channel, which is also out on Odyssey and Rumble, and also out on BitChute as well. Although BitChute's got issues these days for some reason, but that's neither here nor there. And so what we're doing with that is I wanted to basically introduce myself and bring you into what it is that this series is going to be all about and what my involvement is and things of that sort. So why don't we get into it and we'll do that. So what I've got right here is I've actually got a tablet with some questions, just a few questions, a half dozen or so. Nothing really major. I'm going to go through each of those questions, and so why don't we start with the first one, which is, why am I doing this video? Well, this is mostly for the folks that happen to come across it, and also I wanted to let folks know out on from that watch the streams out on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rumble. Just want to give folks a heads up on why I'm doing this. So why am I doing this video? This is basically just a quick orientation of what this series is going to be about a little bit. So, and also to talk a little bit about myself and my involvement with the channel. So right off the bat, we'll just start off. When did I start watching Switch to Linux? I started probably, it was after you started the channel, obviously. And of course, some memory in me. I mean, I started watching Linux content back in 2014, so 11 years ago. When I actually made the switch to Linux, and I actually found Linux Mint, and I happened to like it and everything like that, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about it, how I can use it, things of that sort with the desktop and some of the system, and I took it from there. However, as much as I watched, I swear I was watching Tom with Switch to Linux. Apparently not, because it wasn't until after I bought this place, in, second half of 15, and then just happened to stumble across this channel searching for Linux channels, and so that's, I've been watching ever since I saw that. So it was probably within the first 6 months that Switch to Linux actually started, and it's just snowballed from there. Now, I'm a supporter of Switch to Linux, and when did I actually start supporting Switch to Linux? I would say it would have to be at least, well, it's been at least 3 years. Getting close to probably 4 if I think hard enough. So it was kind of like a odd situation for me and stuff like that. I ended up during January of 22. I ended up in the hospital for a week and a half, and because of pneumonia. However, it was because, yeah, it was the coof, but the coof wasn't the thing. I never lost taste. Things didn't taste horrible or anything like that. It just opened the door for pneumonia to come in, so I was in the hospital for a week and a half with pneumonia. So that was that. And after that, I'd done my at-home nursing, stuff like that, to get better and get strong again, because I wasn't allowed to get out of bed. I wasn't allowed to stand up, and that's just because of my neurological issues. I've got some balance issues, and and I let them know, hey, I happen to have some balance issues. Just want to give you a heads up, so I can stand up and stuff like that, but don't make me do anything jarring and stuff like that. So what do? Fall risk. And I couldn't get out of bed. Couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't get down the hall. I couldn't stand up. All I needed to do was stand up and then sit down after like 10-15 seconds. No, they couldn't have that. They're idiots. But either way, that's neither here nor there. Moving on. I tried to get onto the supporter stream one night, or I wanted to, and you have to be a supporter in order to be involved in the supporter streams. So I became a supporter, and I jumped on, or tried to, with Triton, which is actually a different computer system. It's on the other side of the wall there. It's in the bedroom. Yeah, that's the one that I've got my special Windows build on it just for playing around with. It's not a production system or anything like that. It's just for messing with. And I tried to get into the stream using that at the time because that was my production machine. And it didn't work out very well because it turns out that the A6 processor isn't good for transmitting video. I had used it once before and it worked out fine, but for this it didn't work out. So I got involved a little bit as far as being a contributor. I got another machine, which is Celeria, and I became a supporter stream member during that summer. I think it was, yeah. I just say during that summer. I also met Tom in June of that year. And I started to get involved with supporter streams at that point. So yeah, I've been a supporter since late 21, early 22. Now I began my community involvement, like around that same time, mainly with the supporter stream. I wasn't doing any chats or anything like that, but I started getting involved with the chats. I actually got involved with the online Matrix chat, which is a federated chat. It's not on any of the big servers and stuff like that. It's a big service of its own, but it's a lot better. It's a lot more secure and things of that sort. I got onto it and just got involved and just chatted and just said hello, stuff like that. Talked with Tom, talked with Sobu, not so much Dan. Dan doesn't really do much on that. Alex that we've seen on our hangouts and stuff like that. Was it Mythos? We had Mythos come in. He doesn't do the supporter streams or anything like that. He just kind of joins in on our offline hangouts on using Jitsi, because we actually use that platform in order to do the supporter streams, and it works out very well. I started doing that and just kind of hanging around, doing things, stuff like that. But it got more involved. Yeah, and later on, I actually started to get more involved. And I started to take on some different duties. And I've got some different items here that I've got listed. What volunteer duties do I have? Let's see. I announce new videos and streams on social media and Matrix. So what I do is, like, when I keep an eye out for when new videos come out, just by going to the YouTube channel for Switch to Linux. And what I do from that is I get a copy of the thumbnail and then I modify the thumbnail. And all I really do is just shrink it 5% and I throw it onto another template, and then I just put a little thing, using this logo here, that the thumbnail copy is provided by me, essentially. And then then I have my own little border that I stick that 95% size thumbnail into, and it's got the forest border and then a yellow outer border and things like that. So what I do is I take that, and then I have a template of text that I use for announcing videos. I've got Blue Sky, which unfortunately has to be very, very short. So basically, all I do there is throw in the thumbnail and just links to the pages. On not just there, or not just YouTube, but also on Odyssey and Rumble as well. So I do that. I also do Fediverse. So everybody thinks Mastodon. Well, Mastodon isn't the entire Fediverse. The Fediverse is any site that utilizes the ActivityPub protocol. I began on Mastodon, but like 3 years ago, we got off of that and I went to a Pleroma instance that is run by Disroot. Hence my Disquest videos. I'm a supporter of Disroot, and I do that there. And so I post there, and I got 5,000 characters I can post. Blows X right out of the water. Although I am out on X, and I do post on X, and I actually throw them $3 a month so that I can use my Fediverse length postings. All the text, all the pertinent information, all the tags, all the hashtags, all those, and all the information that I want to give, including the site, the page locations for the videos. And I also throw the thumbnail on that. I also go out onto the federated platforms of Friendica, which is the Fediverse version of Facebook. And I also do Lemmy, which is basically an aggregate, link aggregate discussion forum kind of thing, which goes out there. I just checked this morning. There's 104 members of the community that I've got going on for Switch to Linux. And that's great. I'd love to get more out there. I've got all those links down below. And so we've got all of that. That's really cool. And I do that on Friendica. And also I do announcements right out on Matrix as well. I got special permission and access to the announcements room to post announcements of videos and streams and any other important announcements that people should probably be aware of, like the Cloudflare issue that happened the other day. Yeah, we were affected. So yeah. So that's what I do. That's some of the stuff that I've got going on with that. And I've got my other things here. I am also a moderator for all the stream chats. So on Thursday nights for the weekly news roundup, I throw the YouTube chat, also the chats for Odyssey and Rumble, and I monitor them to make sure everybody's behaving and we don't get any naughties. So, and we also have the live stream chat on Matrix, and I chat there a little bit too. I don't say a whole heck of a lot because I am taking timestamps for the different sections of the stream for the weekly news roundup, and then I give those to Tom, and he'll actually go back later on at some point and take those timestamps and put them in so that people can go directly to sections if they want to skip over anything. So I do that for them as well. And let's see, what else have we got here? I am a moderator on Matrix. I mentioned that because like with the others. Let's see. And I'm now available to create supporter content for Switch to Linux. Yeah, this video. I can now start creating videos. I was doing a video series called Treats, where I would actually get a copy of the entire stream and then break them all down with funny comments, and also when the kiddies got treats. However, the viewership of that hasn't been all that great, so I nixed it. So I'm not going to do that anymore unless people really want it. There's a lot of work involved. It's very tedious. It's very easy, but it's very, very tedious, and it takes me a few hours. That's downloading the video and splicing it out, and then putting everything together, and then putting my little additional things, and rearranging and putting the song at the end and stuff like that. It takes a long time to do. So for the amount of work that it takes, the viewership just isn't there. So I'm not going to be doing that. But beyond that, I can do videos such as this one. I'm going to be doing this series where I'm going to be doing stuff that's for Switch to Linux. If he really can't get around to it, or if I just happen to come across something that I think might be neat, I'll go ahead and do the video, and I'll do it as Siwtched, and yeah, so there we go. Now, are there any plans for the future? Now, what kind of plans? You know, I do have plans, but this whole thing is one plan, but I'm doing it right now. So what do I have any plans for the future? Well, I have a special project lined up, and it involves a Raspberry Pi, and you can actually see that on my series Pi Quest. So there's that there. What am I going to do with that? You just have to find out over there. So we're going to be doing that. So that is basically going to conclude this video. I didn't want it to be overly long, but I wanted to make sure that I took care of everything. So once again, this happens to be the Anchorage for Switch to Linux, and I'm actually using some of Switch to Linux assets, namely the border graphic. He gave me a copy, and I've done my little tweaks to it to match my channel, make it green, stuff like that. And of course, we got the title bar down here for the article name, and I'm using the font for Battlestar Galactica because I'm a Battlestar Galactica fan, and it just looks really good, and it's nice and clear and concise, and I can help out with other things too. So I'm going to be doing that, and that basically concludes this. So I want to thank everybody for having come along. So that is really, really good. And I hope you like this. So make sure you give it a like. And if you made it this far, I've got an ESP card back there. What is it displaying? Thanks. Skál. Talk to you later.